Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. It's in the description below. It is your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any Watchbox platform. Reach out to me directly. Email tmosso@thewatchbox.com. Today, we have something exceptional. Made in 30 pieces in platinum for the 2006 model year, celebrating 30 years of Michel Parmigiani's work in watchmaking. This is the Parmigiani Kalpa XL Tourbillon Chiaroscuro, a timepiece with an extraordinary open dial tourbillon caliber, 8-day power reserve manual wind, and finishing that should satisfy even the most jaded high horology snob. This timepiece has few equals. Now, entirely in platinum with the Kalpa case, it's both physically massive and ergonomically correct. So the watch measures at its broadest across the wrist 36.3 millimeters. It is 11.9 millimeters thick, which means it's considerably thinner, almost by half a millimeter, than a Rolex Daytona, so it is a slim watch. It is 52.3 millimeters from lug tip to lug tip, and then the spacing between the lugs is 23 millimeters. My wrist is 16 centimeters in circumference, and I'll put it on so you get a better sense of it. It's a broad thing, but it's nicely cambered with those lugs curving around the wrist, perfectly suited to a smaller wrist. You could wear this watch on a wrist as small as 15 centimeters circumference. It is very thin and sloped on its case flanks, so you're going to have no trouble fitting it underneath the cuff. The mass is impressive. The platinum, always a bit of a wonder, as unless you wear platinum on a regular basis, you're just never ready for the super premium density and the pull on the wrist. It really does feel like the only metal suited for a king or even an emperor. Now, the watch I'll show you from a distance, perhaps you can see it better in proportion to my whole arm. It's large, but it's not a big bully. The fit is outstanding, very close coupled to the wrist and secure. I really enjoy this piece. Taking a look at the hardware and the software, the nice thing about having partial ownership from Hermes is that Parmigiani straps are made by Hermes, which means they are wonderfully lush. Large rectangular scale alligator leather in black on the top with a monotone stitch, a semi-gloss sheen. You can see there is a sheer cut side showing you the layers of leather, and then on the underside, a wonderful buttery calfskin, truly special stuff bracelet, Hermes. And of course, it's got a little bit of a taper to it, so proportionally it matches the taper of the lugs. You can also see that there is a full double deploying clasp. As with many watches made of platinum, this clasp is white gold for a good reason. White gold is the hardest gold, and when you're making small mechanical components that are load-bearing like this hinge, it helps to have the hardest of precious metals at your service. You can also see that the profile of the buckle matches the profile of the lugs. There's a lot of design parallelism here. You can also see that there is a revetment or a recess in the flank of the case so that the lugs can be drilled much closer together than the actual end points of the lug tips. This is why the watch wears so well on a smaller wrist, because the pivot centers of the strap are much further inward than the lug tips. So even though it's 52 plus from lug tip to lug tip, it's probably just about 50 from pivot to pivot. And again, because there is that recess there, there's very little daylight showing between strap and case, which is an artful integration. The case is all of high polish, and as you can see, the lugs are rather formidable, handsome, stepped out, and voluminous. They have independent sculptural forms, so theirs is both an ergonomic and an aesthetic mission, and mission accomplished. There is a lovely, distinctive, and sharp knurling on the edge of this Parmigiani Fleurier branded crown. It is a manual wind watch, and then you're actually looking at two sapphires. The first one covers the dial, and you can see it's a shaped and cambered sapphire, and then the second sapphire, you can see its outline around the tourbillon upper bridge. It bears all of the indices, which are white gold, polished, and dart form. So you have those applique white gold indices with a wonderful stretched, almost tensioned look to them. They feel as though they were drawn out elastically under tension. They have that sharp inward point to them, as though they are in fact load-bearing. So there's a dynamism to this dial before you even get to the tourbillon carriage. That dart-like form is echoed by the hybrid hands, which are a fusion of Dauphine and Alphas. They are a lovely Delta-style hand, as Parmigiani calls them. Now, getting a little bit closer, you can see that the scale for the power reserve, you have haut and bas, which is high and low, or up and down, and then you have the hebdomadaire nomenclature at 6 o'clock, which means weekly. This is a watch you only have to wind once per week. Though the scale goes up to 7, the power reserve, courtesy of twin barrels, it is in fact 8 days, so you will wind this watch once a week. It has a free sprung balance, adjusted in 5 positions, so very precise and built to deal with life on the wrist. A free sprung balance can always be adjusted more precisely and then better hold that adjustment in the face of shakes on the wrist. It is also a tourbillon that beats away at 21,600 vibrations per hour, and it makes a 1-minute circuit, so it is a 1-minute tourbillon. It uses an overcoil hairspring, so regardless of its position, it will keep time evenly. Lots to love on this dial side, starting with the sharp inward angles where the anchors of the upper tourbillon bridge meet the continuously rounded and black polished inner bridge components. There is a golden chaton a la pocket watches fixing the pivot jewel, and you can see that on the dial there's handsome satination, miles of mirrored anglage that you can see on the skeletonized components of the base plate, and then lovely elements such as the contrast between the nickel anthracite coating and the rose gold gilding of different components. You can see there is a motion works visible that's used for setting the hands, and then the keyless works, which is a combination of clutch, spring, winding wheel, and crown wheel. That's used for selecting between winding and setting, and as you can see when I pull the crown out, the clutch engages the crown wheel that sets the watch, and then when I push the crown back in, then I am actually winding the watch. Now the timepiece, when you turn it over, caliber PF501, you can see the Vaucher star is Vaucher manufacturer, is the Parmigiani company that creates its movements. And there's even more to love on this reverse side. You can see the underside of the bridge is finished the same high standard as the top, and we have more tonal contrast here, adding a combination of brown, gold, silver, and even purple. This is a handsome dial. This is a more handsome movement. On the reverse side, all of a sudden, I feel like I'm looking at an endless collage of high horology greatest hits. You can see that there are elements of contrast even between the yellow gold coloration of the wheels and then the rose gold coloration of the bridge components. You can see underneath the barrel itself has been polished, and each jewel and screw sink features that same mirrored anglage that you get on the bridges. You can see there are sharp interior angles where two bevels meet. All of this water resistant down to 30 meters. Truly impressive stuff. One of the finest high horology watches you can buy from one of the best independents in the business. And unlike a lot of independents, Parmigiani Fleurier is well stocked with money from its patrons, the Sandoz family, Hermes, and of course many customers like Richard Mille who buy parts and engineering services from Parmigiani, so they will always be around to service your watch and provide parts. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details.